Okay, sometimes when there's a large amount of data, it makes more sense to group the data into what we call class intervals. So here we have an example where there are 50 scores. So rather than tallying all 50 scores and marking them individually, what we do is clump them into groups. Okay, so part A tells us to arrange the scores into class intervals from 0 to 9, 10 to 19, 20 to 29, etc. So we're putting them into 10s, 20s, and so on. And we're going to write them up like that into a frequency table. Okay, so what we do with our frequency table down here is we write what our class interval is. That's our first column. Then our second column is what we call the class center. So the class center tells us the middle value of that class. Then we have, you can have a tally column if that helps, or you can just go straight to a frequency column. Okay, and then we often have an extra column which we call the FX column, and I'll explain that a bit later. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is write down our class intervals. So we're going to have from 0 to 9, then we'll have from 10 to 19. Make sure that your numbers don't double up. So I can't go from 10 to 20, then 20 to 30, because the 20 would fit into both categories. So you must start and end on a different number. So 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59, 60 to 69, and continue on. Now, just have a quick look at your data and find the lowest and highest scores. So looking at that data, to me it looks like 19 might be the lowest, and I think 90 might be the highest. Alright, so I actually don't need that first group, okay, but I do need all the rest. And I need to go all the way up to the 90s. Okay, now before we look at the frequency, what we have to do is figure out what the class center is. So the class center is the value in the middle of those two scores. So 10, if I'm not sure what it is, then what I can do is add the two numbers and divide by 2. So 10 plus 19 gives me 29. 29 divided by 2 gives me 14.5. Okay, so that's my class center. Carrying on, the next group is from 20 to 29, so my class center would be 24.5. Alright, and continue on for each class. Alright, I'll let you finish that off. The frequency then is the number in each group. So if I look back up at my set of scores, I think there was only one number in the teens, which was the 19. So my frequency for 10 to 19 is 1. Then I'm looking for my values between and including 20 to 29. So have a quick flick through and mark them off as you go so that you don't leave any numbers out. So we've got 1 there, 2, 3, so 3 numbers for 20 to 29. Do the same for 30 to 39 and continue on. So I'm just going to pause the video there and finish that off. Okay, so I've finished off the class centers and the frequency for each of those groups. The next thing you need to do is work out the totals. So down the bottom, the total for the frequency column, go ahead and add up that frequency. Okay, you should get 50. If you don't get 50, then you've left out a number, alright? Because it said up top here that there were 50 students. So 50 is your total frequency. Then we get to the FX column. So the FX column means that you multiply the class center by the frequency, and the result is what you put in the FX column. So I do 14.5 times 1, which is 14.5. Then I do 24.5 times that by 3, and that's 73.5. 34.5 times 6, and that's 207. Continue on and finish off that column. Okay, when you finish doing that, you then need to total that column as well. And once you've done that, you should get 1961.3. Okay, so let's think about what these two values represent. So this number here is the number of scores. This number here is the total sum of all scores. Alright, so we need to remember that for a bit later on. Okay, so that's part A done. That's drawing up the table. Next part says find the modal class. So part B, that was part A. Part B is to find the modal class. The mode, remember, is the most common. So we're looking for frequency, highest frequency, and that's 14. So the modal class is the class 60 to 69. C is the median class. So the median means the middle. So if there's 50 scores, that means I'm going to split my 50 scores into two groups of 25. So I need to find the score that goes in the middle. So my first 25, and then from 26 to 50. So I need this score that sits between the 25th and 26th score. So I need to do a little bit of work here. I need to figure out what I get up to as I count my frequencies. So that was 1. Now I'm up to 4 if I add on the next 3. Then I'm up to 10 here. I add the next 5 and I get to 15. I add the next 9 and I get to 24. And then my next group has 14. So the scores 25 and 26 must lie in this group here. Okay, so my median class will be, again, 60 to 69 class. Alright, D, find an estimate for the mean mark from the frequency distribution table. Alright, so the mean, remember to find the mean, we do the total of all scores over the number of scores. Alright, so that means we will have 1961.3 over 50. So do that calculation and you should get 39.23. Okay, that's your mean mark. Okay, the last thing I want you to do is to complete a frequency histogram and polygon to show this data. Right, you know how to do a frequency histogram and polygon. For normal data, this one's exactly the same, except the only difference is on the horizontal axis, you'll mark this class center. So I'm just going to do one now so you can see what it looks like. Okay, keep in mind that your highest frequency is 14, so your vertical scale must go up to 14, and also keep in mind how many groups you've got going along the bottom. So let's start with our vertical scale. It has to go up to 14. Okay, so here's my histogram done. Just make sure that you always label your axes. Alright, so this is frequency, and this is your class center. Okay, also remember that you leave a gap at the beginning here, and when you draw up your polygon, you draw a line from the middle of one column to the middle of the next column. Okay, and I'll let you finish that off.